Welcome, 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 you insanely curious gamers, to Gamescope. Do you ever just hear about a game announcement and think, wait, what? Are they serious? Did someone actually greenlight that? Because that was my exact bewildered reaction to Elden Ring Nightreign. Seriously, a FromSoftware RPG, famous for its solitary, epic journeys mashed up with roguelites and battle royale mechanics. It genuinely sounded like something I dreamt up during a fever pitch after an all-night gaming session, maybe scribbling bizarre concepts on a whiteboard while half asleep. It felt like the kind of wonderfully outlandish, experimental concept no sensible game studio would actually devote serious development money to. And yet, here we are. Today, our mission on Gamescope is to plunge headfirst into a comprehensive review roundup for this highly anticipated and frankly, utterly bizarre title. We've meticulously gathered the critic scores, the user scores, and we are going to meticulously unpack why there's such a fascinating, almost baffling, and undeniably stark divide in reception. So strap in, because this isn't just a game, it's a conversation starter, a head-scratcher, and a truly wild one.
It really is. And the numbers, right from the jump, tell an immediate story of, well, divergence. Elden Ring Nightreign arrives as FromSoftware's latest, an undoubtedly experimental title with a heavy focus on cooperative play. If we look at the aggregate scores, which, often give us a quick pulse check, OpenCritic gives it a 79 average.
79, okay.
Yeah, with a solid 76% of critics recommending the game across 85 reviews. Metacritic, the other big one, lands at a very respectable 78 out of 100 from 64 critic reviews. By almost any industry metric, these are, without question, generally favorable scores for a brand new release from a major studio.
Absolutely. Those are numbers that most developers would be, popping champagne over, celebrating a clear win. Any other studio, and we'd be talking about another guaranteed hit. But here's where the plot thickens. Because if you glance over at the Metacritic user score, the feeling takes a dramatic, almost like precipitous dive. It's sitting at a 6.6 out of 10, based on nearly 900 user ratings. Now, that is a significant split. We're talking about a chasm of over 10 points between what professional critics are saying and what the players, the ones actually sinking their teeth into the game, are feeling. What does that even mean for a game like this? Is it like a misunderstood masterpiece, an artistic triumph that just needs a specific audience?
Or maybe just flawed.
Or is it a flawed gem that only shines under incredibly specific, almost impossible to achieve conditions for most players? That's precisely what we're here to find out today as we dive deep and unpack why critics and fans seem to be seeing this game through such wildly different lenses. So let's peel back the layers on this audacious experiment, because it genuinely is an experiment, right? From top to bottom. When Elden Ring Nightreign was first announced, I remember just blinking at my screen. A FromSoftware RPG spliced with roguelites and battle royales.
Yeah, it didn't compute immediately.
Not at all. It sounded less like a coherent design doc and more like, that fever dream during a game jam. It genuinely felt like the kind of experimental concept no established game studio would actually put serious, AAA money behind. It's so out there, so against type for FromSoftware, that its very existence is an anomaly. And yet, here it is, this fantastic, anomalous thing. Richard Wakeling of GameSpot, in his review, he captured it perfectly, calling it a risk worth celebrating. Yeah. And honestly, after digging into the sources, I couldn't agree more. The sheer audacity that they actually brought this to life and that it works for some is genuinely wild.
It truly is. What's utterly fascinating here is how FromSoftware, a studio known for its meticulously crafted, often solitary, punishingly hard experiences, is now deliberately tapping into its more unconventional side. Almost whimsical, even. They're putting their own weird, bold spin on a multiplayer experience, going into territory few would expect. And if you connect this to FromSoftware's history, it kind of reminds you of their long lineage of creating oddities, right? Yeah. Titles that were maybe niche, maybe not huge sellers, but undeniably unique.
Oh yeah, like Metal Wolf Chaos.
Exactly. Metal Wolf Chaos, that ridiculously over-the-top mech shooter where you're the U.S. president. Or Otogi, Myth of Demons, that lesser-known but really distinct action game from their early days. This suggests that this creative spirit, that willingness to just try something absolutely bonkers, as you put it, is still very much alive and well there. The core insight here isn't just that they experiment. It's that for FromSoftware, that singular artistic vision often seems to override conventional market wisdom or even fan expectations.
Yeah, they just do their thing.
Right. And this willingness to forge their own path creates these polarizing yet undeniably unique IPs. It's a double-edged sword, the source of their genius, but also, as we're seeing with Nightreign, the root of significant friction when that vision clashes with player practicalities and desires.
And that's what makes them so
Right.
captivating, isn't it? They're not afraid to just do it, even if it means raising eyebrows, or in this case, maybe sending some fans into an existential crisis. So let's talk about how this strange beast actually plays, because understanding the core loop is crucial to getting both the highs and the lows. The game is built around this frantic, intense, and precisely timed 3-day cycle.
3 days, okay.
Yeah. Days 1 and 2 are for what you might call the roguelike grind.
Yeah.
You're farming gear, beating mini-bosses, leveling up your chosen night fare, all in preparation. This builds up to a climactic showdown with one of the 8 big Night Lord bosses on day 3.
Right, the main event.
Exactly. Each complete run, start to finish, clocks in at about 45 minutes, so it's a deliberately short burst of intense action. And to keep you constantly on your toes, there's this persistent, almost suffocating battle royale-esque circle that constricts at set points.
Ah, the closing circle mechanic.
Yep. It's not just for show. It forces constant pressure, pushes you forward, prevents dawdling, and makes every decision a rapid, high-stakes gamble against enemies and the clock.
That definitely creates a unique and pretty relentless rhythm that sets it apart from traditional Souls-likes. The world you're exploring is Limveld, which is described as a melting pot of Elden Ring's environments, enemies, bosses, and structures.
So familiar but mashed up.
Pretty much. Imagine taking the best bits of Limgrave, Caelid's sort of decaying beauty, the majesty of Lendel, maybe even the eerie depths of Lake of Rot, and mashing them together into this new, compact, perpetually shifting playground. It's an incredibly smart example of asset reuse in the industry, taking familiar, high-quality elements and remixing them into something that feels both recognizable and unsettlingly new.
That makes sense. Saves time, keeps the quality high.
Right. And while the overall map layout of Limveld is mostly static across runs, the procedural generation kicks in for points of interest within those zones. Plus, they have what they call random events. These can be anything from sudden boss raids crashing your party, mysterious summoning portals unleashing unexpected hordes,
Oh, wow.
or other wild occurrences designed to inject a heavy level of chaos and theoretically keep each run feeling fresh and unpredictable. However, this is precisely where some of the initial variety concerns start creeping into reviews, both critic and, perhaps more loudly, user reviews.
Okay, what's the issue there?
Well, critics like PC Gamer, even while generally praising the game, and many user reviews, consistently noted a lack of story, which for FromSoft is already a big departure.
Definitely. Lore is usually huge for them.
And a feeling of repetitiveness after 20 hours for a roguelike. This point is a significant red flag for a genre that absolutely thrives on endless replayability.
20 hours.
Ugh.
That's not a lot for a roguelike.
Exactly. Think about Hades, or Slay the Spire, where 20 hours is barely scratching the surface. Nightrein's boss pool is also quite limited. You only encounter 3 unique Night Lord bosses per day, and only 6 returning bosses from the entire Dark Souls trilogy. That's just 2 per game.
Only 6 returning bosses total.
Yeah. This relatively small, static pool for a roguelike, combined with that perception of early repetition, definitely became a major point of friction for players expecting that signature FromSoftware depth and variety.
That limitation on procedural variety definitely sounds like a fundamental challenge for a roguelike, especially from FromSoft. Makes you wonder if those random events are really enough to carry it. But maybe the game's true depth isn't just the environments, but the players themselves. Because this is where Nightreign really shakes things up, the new Nightfarer classes.
Yes, the classes.
You're not just a blank slate. You pick from 8 distinct Nightfarer classes, each with unique skills, different playstyles, powerful ultimate attacks. We're talking characters like Wilder, who isn't just some generic knight. He's an all-rounder with a literal grappling hook for pulling enemies or zipping across the map that completely changes how you navigate combat.
The grappling hook sounds fun.
Totally. Then there's the Duchess. She's kind of squishy, a stealthy knife specialist, but she has an incredible rewind ability that can basically negate incoming damage, like turning back time on a fatal blow.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Right. Or the Inquisitor, a heavy hitter summoning spectral blades. Or the Scholar, a support magic user creating protective wards. These characters aren't just skins. They demand new strategies, different approaches, and fundamentally alter how you fight Elden Ring's familiar foes. Here's where it gets really interesting.
And that's precisely where the cooperation element truly shines and where Nightreign finds its unique rhythm. These unique character skills encourage cooperation, almost demanding that players sync up in exciting ways to make or break a boss battle.
Right. You need that synergy.
Exactly. Imagine the strategy. Wilder grappling an enemy into an Inquisitor's trap, while the Duchess rewinds a party-wiping attack, giving your team the precious seconds needed to finish off a Night Lord. The possibilities are genuinely exciting. The game also deliberately streamlines the traditional, often complex, FromSoftware inventory and stat management.
Oh, thank goodness. No more agonizing over fractions of points.
Pretty much. Gone are the days of agonizing over every single stat point or comparing a dozen weapon scaling types. Level ups are automatic, preferred stats increase with one button press. Weapon stats focus on core things: raw damage, elemental affinity, passive bonuses, and distinct weapon skills. This simplification enables quick judgment during those fast-paced runs.
So you're not stuck in menus while the circle closes in.
Precisely. You're not bogged down in menus while a Night Lord is unleashing hell. It's a design choice that works exceptionally well in this frantic, co-op, timed environment, keeping the action flowing.
And then we just have to talk about the boss battles. Oh, the bosses. Yeah, forget the usual Souls duels. The scale here is completely different. IGN's review, Mitchell Saltzman specifically, was gushing, describing the 8 new Night Lord bosses as among the best FromSoft has ever crafted.
That's incredibly high praise.
Isn't it? Given their legendary rep for boss design, these aren't just scaled-up old foes. They're explicitly designed for 3 players. Complex mechanics, multi-stage phases, terrifying party-wiping attacks.
Sounds more like MMO raids.
Exactly. They feel like intense, coordinated MMO boss battles. The critical consensus is that 7 out of 8 are among the best FromSoftware has ever created, which is almost unbelievable coming from them.
Yeah, the innovation in these new bosses is undeniable, and they're a clear highlight for coordinated groups. Mitchell Saltzman specifically mentioned the Fisher and the Fog boss as fights that gave me goosebumps.
Goosebumps. Nice.
Right. A rare feat for a seasoned Souls player. These aren't just about learning patterns. They demand precise coordination, positioning, timely execution from the whole trio. Everyone has a crucial role. Whether it's drawing aggro, disrupting a boss ability, reviving a fallen teammate, it's all essential. And for a fun little touch, Saltzman noted that the infamous centipede demon from Dark Souls returned.
Oh no, not that thing.
Only to be, in his words, obliterated by 14 years of action RPG combat advancement.
Huh. That's actually pretty funny. Bit of meta commentary there.
Yeah, it's a fun nod, but it shows how much combat design has evolved, especially for faster co-op play. The scale and mechanics challenge of these Night Lords are indeed a highlight, but it also brings us to one of the game's core dilemmas for players who can't consistently get that ideal 3-player setup, especially solo players, which we definitely need to get into.
Okay, so battles are epic, characters are cool, demanding new thinking. But how does this translate to progression and replayability in a roguelite? Because that's the backbone of the genre, isn't it? The game features a relic system, which is your persistent progression between runs.
Right, the carryover stuff.
Exactly. These relics give passive buffs more damage, better resistance, stuff like that. You equip 3 per character for continuous improvements. You mostly get them randomly from enemies or chests, but you can also buy some or earn them through specific objectives called remembrances.
Remembrances.
Yeah, they're like journal entries that unlock playable chapters with unique challenges and guaranteed rewards. So a bit more agency there.
Okay, so the relic system offers that crucial persistent progression, but it definitely has its own quirks, and for many, its frustrations. PC Gamer's review pointed out pretty bluntly that most relics are trash.
Ouch, so lots of junk drops.
Apparently. A significant chunk of what you find might not feel impactful or useful for your build. However, they did concede that the thrill of having that kind of power in a FromSoft game is delicious. It's that chase for the perfect game-breaking build, or just that one incredibly powerful drop that totally alters your run that keeps you coming back. Classic roguelite tension, you know? Random chance versus player agency.
The RNG gods giveth and taketh away.
Pretty much. Sometimes they smile, sometimes they laugh maniacally, but this more optimistic take from critics contrasts sharply with widespread user complaints. Many players find the random nature of getting relics just annoying, especially when trying to strengthen a preferred class or build.
Yeah, I can see that. Wanting fire relics, getting only frost.
Exactly. While you can buy a small selection and get set rewards for bosses or remembrances, the vast majority is pure RNG. This can make runs feel less rewarding, more like a chore for some, as you're just hoping for that one specific drop that never seems to show up, even after hours.
Leans heavily into the rogue part. maybe too much for some.
Definitely. Especially for players who prefer more deterministic progression paths.
And that, I think, brings us perfectly, maybe painfully, into the co-op conundrum. This is where Nightreign truly shines, and yet also, unfortunately, truly stumbles. So what does this all mean for the average player out there? The critical consensus is overwhelmingly clear. Elden Ring Nightreign is hailed as one of the finest examples of a three-player co-op game around.
High praise indeed.
It is. It speaks to the quality when things align. But there's a massive caveat, a huge asterisk, and it's a big one, when played exactly as designed. As IGN put it, it's an excellent experience to tackle with your friends and a blast with a squad of friends. Critics highlight the coordination, the frantic rush, the shared victories. But this is where critic and user experiences just diverge almost violently.
This is truly where the rubber meets the road, because while critics were often playing in ideal, maybe curated groups, users are hitting the brutal reality highlighted everywhere online. The unspoken but critical minimum requirement, have two friends.
Yeah, have two friends. Sounds simple, right?
Yeah. Sounds simple, but for a huge number of adult gamers with jobs, families, complex schedules, it's a significant, often insurmountable barrier. Users are incredibly vocal about how hard to sync up schedules for extended play sessions can be, often leading them to just write off multiplayer-only games entirely.
Yeah, that's relatable. Trying to get three adults free at the same time.
It's tough. The sentiment is palpable. I have like 5 IRL friends who play ER. Problem is we're all in our 30s, jobs, families. None of us have time to sync up schedules for an extended session. That's the real issue with multiplayer-only stuff. This isn't just an inconvenience. For many, it's a deal breaker. It effectively locks them out of the game's best moments, like having a sports car that needs fuel you can never find.
And it gets worse. Let's talk about the glaring omissions, the baffling design choices that really kneecap this game's accessibility. First off, and this is a head-scratcher in 2025, no cross-platform play. None.
Still, in 2025, wow.
Right. Eurogamer called it a huge oversight, and users on Reddit were even blunted. Massive L. This immediately makes many players just lose interest because they can't play with friends on different systems, Xbox, PlayStation, PC. It's fundamental for multiplayer now.
It really is.
And it ties into FromSoftware's long-standing, dare I say, infamous reputation for archaic online networking and generally being behind solid on tech and online.
Yeah.
It's like they're living in a different decade sometimes with online stuff.
It's a persistent, frustrating issue players have complained about for years. You see comments like, FromSoft is late at unlocking FPs above 60 by a few decades, or that Japanese devs make great games but are pretty notorious for being behind Eichlet on tech and online.
It's a common perception, fair or not.
It is. And for a game that hinges entirely on co-op, this lack of cross-platform is a critical barrier to forming the ideal three-player squad. If your two friends are on PlayStation and you're on Xbox, you're just out of luck. Massive missed opportunity.
But wait, there's even more. On top of no crossplay, there's the absolutely baffling decision.
Yeah.
No dedicated two-player mode.
None.
None.
No duos.
Seriously.
Yeah.
It's an amazing oversight, especially considering how popular Elden Ring itself was for duos with mods and how many people just play with one friend or partner. The developer's official claim that it was forgotten during development and they're considering adding it post-launch.
Forgotten? How do you forget a core player count mode?
Exactly. The community reaction has been, let's just say, extreme skepticism. Users are calling it a PR statement or accusing FromSoft of cheapness and laziness.
Or worse.
Or worse, some jokingly suggested it was a kink for trio play, implying this weird, almost fetishistic devotion to the three-player format. The frustration is real for people who play primarily in pairs. It feels like a slap in the face.
It certainly raises the question, why force the three-player dynamic so strictly when modern gaming circles are way more fluid? Now you can play two-player plus a random third.
Oh, the random queue lottery.
Exactly. Users consistently find this not worth it. Random players often wasting your time, running off on their own to die, or not helping out. The randomness and lack of accountability is a major deterrent. And the absence of built-in voice chat just makes it worse. You only have a basic ping system.
Pings for complex boss strategies. Good luck.
Right. Makes conveying any nuance virtually impossible. You can ping an enemy, but you can't say, hit the weak point on its back now, or save your ultimate. Without clear voice chat, playing with randoms is a gamble, often a frustrating one. The coordination needed for those Nightlord bosses, tuned for 3, demands communication. The game just doesn't facilitate natively for random squads.
So, if playing with friends is the ideal but hard, And playing with randoms is often a nightmare. What about going it alone? Many Souls fans are solo players. Well, the consensus across critics and users is strong, clear, and brutal. Solo play is poorly balanced and not recommended. Unless you are a hardcore Elden Ring player that actively seeks out ways to make that already difficult game even more challenging. It's basically designed as a masochist's dream, not a fun, balanced experience for most. I would be honestly shocked if it isn't patched and adjusted within the first month, because right now, it sounds like pure frustration, not enjoyable challenge.
That's putting it mildly. And it's a critical flaw given the solo focus of FromSoft's previous hits. The reason solo is so hard is glaringly clear. The game is unequivocally designed with a 3-player squad in mind.
Everything is tuned for 3.
Everything. Encounters, Night Lord bosses, all balanced for the damage output, aggro management, strategic diversity of 3 players working together. Even though solo players get a damage buff, they fundamentally have only 1 life to live against bosses, with virtually nothing to make up for the lost co-op revival option.
No safety nets like in other roguelikes.
Very few. Think Hades with its death defiances, or Returnal with extra life artifacts. Nightreign has a rare resurrection item, but it's often too scarce or means sacrificing a legendary weapon you need. It makes solo play feel like a job half-finished, maybe even completely abandoned in terms of balance.
And then there's the run-back problem, which sounds especially cruel and totally against the spirit of FromSoft games, right?
Oh, it's rough.
Unlike traditional Souls-likes, where a tough boss usually has a nearby site of grace for quick reattempts, letting you learn iteratively.
That loop.
In Nightreign, failing a boss boots you back to the start. That means a full 45-minute run through the whole loop, enemies, resources, shrinking circle before you can even try that boss again.
45 minutes between attempts.
Yep. You never get that immediate chance to learn from failure, tweak your strategy, understand the next move, which is kind of like the core principle, the DNA of a Souls game. It's like the game is saying, you died, great, now go play the last 45 minutes again just for the chance to die differently.
Right.
It fundamentally breaks that crucial feedback loop.
It completely disrupts that iterative learning that Souls players appreciate. That one more try rush is gone, replaced by a lengthy, potentially tedious repeat. Mitchell Saltzman from IGN, though, did offer a glimmer of hope. He speculated that many solo issues are patchable.
How so?
Potentially through things like damage scaling for solo players and making resurrect items a little more easily obtained. Simple fixes, relatively speaking. He also heard directly from the devs that the duo mode was indeed an oversight, and they're actively looking to add it in a future update.
An oversight they're now looking to fix, conveniently.
Well, it suggests there's a path to addressing some big complaints. However, as many users noted, by the time these patches arrive, the hype might have faded, players might have moved on. The prevailing sentiment among some frustrated users is that the devs initially wanted to force players to follow some sort of a kink for trio play, which, yeah, it's humorous, but it underscores the deep frustration.
So after that deep dive into mechanics and the major issues, we're left with this wildly ambitious game, loved by critics under ideal conditions, but slammed by users for accessibility and design choices. Let's look at the numbers again, just to drive it home. Generally, favorable critic scores, Metacritic 78, OpenCritic 79, versus mixed average user scores, Metacritic 6.6. The numbers don't lie, or do they just tell 2 very different stories depending on who's looking?
This stark discrepancy reveals a fundamental difference in perspective and expectations, almost a philosophical divide. Critics often praise the sheer bold attempt to evolve the Elden Ring universe, recognizing the risk FromSoft took. They saw a skillful pivot of the award-winning Elden Ring formula into a whole new subgenre.
Appreciating the craft, the remixing.
Exactly, appreciating the technical craft. For them, the experience was exhilarating when conditions are met, playing with that coordinated team. They focused on innovation, risk-taking, the highs when it's firing on all cylinders. They saw it as an authentic Souls experience in its challenge and perseverance, just in this fresh, rapid-fire format. Many critics appreciate FromSoft trying something so different with their own IP, a sign of creative vitality.
But the user frustration is palpable, and it comes from a completely different place, doesn't it? They feel the game is too punishing and brutally tuned for the mass audience, or maybe too much of a departure for some of the longtime fan base who love the sprawling, solitary exploration of Elden Ring.
The core fan base expectations.
And many users, you see this everywhere, genuinely believe the FromSoft name is buying a +10 or +20 to the review score.
FromSoft tax or bonus, yeah.
Exactly. that the game would score significantly lower, maybe 50s or 60s, if it came from an unknown studio. It speaks to a perceived bias, where the studio's amazing track record elevates a game that, to many, feels fundamentally flawed for solo players or those with tricky schedules. It begs the question, if this wasn't Elden Ring Nightreign, just Nightreign from some indie studio, would it still get a 78 average? Many users say absolutely not, and that's pretty damning.
This brings us to a crucial discussion about the FromSoftware DNA itself. Is it lost or just evolved into something new, maybe unrecognizable for some? Some critics, as we said, still found it an authentic Souls experience, retaining that core, irresistible nature to persevere against impossible odds, the challenge, the punishing difficulty, the triumph. Those elements are still there.
But you immediately see the powerful counter-sentiment from users. Phrases like, "this isn't for me," they feel it's fast and stressful, instead of the slow, methodical, exploration-driven experience they love from Souls games.
It's a pace and feel thing.
Totally. For many, the lack of traditional character progression, not being able to craft their own unique character, the streamlined stats, the rushed, pressuring roguelite loop, it goes against everything they cherish about Elden Ring or Dark Souls. It's not just difficulty, it's the fundamental feel, pacing, design philosophy. They weren't looking for a frantic, time-gated co-op thing. They wanted another epic, lonely journey.
It sounds like a real clash of expectations then. Almost two different games being played depending on your viewpoint. The expert perspective, or one critical view, seems to be that it's basically FromSoftware having some fun with its IP, not trying to replicate Elden Ring or create a new landmark single-player RPG.
Just side project, a creative outlet.
Right, playing in their own sandbox. But that very perspective creates this deep tension between those who see it as innovative and those who feel it's a cash grab cynically repackaging assets. Or, as one frustrated user put it, a bundle of mods that quickly loses its charm.
Another user called it a goulash, which make no sense. Definitely not a ringing endorsement of its cohesion.
And that's where the discussion of replayability and future support becomes absolutely crucial, especially for a roguelike. While there was initial hope, even from critics, that Nightreign could be a brilliant foundation for a long-term game if FromSoft supported it like a live service.
Adding more Night Lords, Night Fairs, events.
Exactly, but the developers have actually been very clear. Nightreign will not be a live service game.
Oh, that's significant.
It's huge. A major point of concern for users who rightly note that repetitive after 20 hours is a gigantic red flag for a roguelike, particularly compared to genre giants like Hades, Slay the Spire, Binding of Isaac. Those games offer hundreds, thousands of hours of unique, evolving content, new synergies, challenges, narratives.
Stuff to keep you hooked long term.
Right. Without ongoing content, without that promise of new stuff, Nightreign risks burning out quickly for its dedicated players. If the core loop gets stale after just 20 hours and there's no new content coming, it deeply impacts its long-term value. Regardless of the initial highs for that perfect trio, it becomes a finite, intense experience, not a long-term engagement.
So we've come full circle on Elden Ring Nightreign. FromSoftware's ambitious, perplexing, ultimately divisive spin-off. A game that undeniably delivers exhilarating, coordinated moments when played exactly as intended, that fine-tuned, communicative trio of skilled players. But it quickly flips, almost schizophrenically, to being incredibly frustrating and largely inaccessible due to those baffling design decisions hindering broader appeal.
Yeah, the contradictions are stark.
No crossplay, no duos at launch, severely unbalanced solo, reliance on voice chat that isn't even built in. The strange beast, as Eurogamer put it, a game of profound contradictions, and it has undeniably, unequivocally, almost savagely divided the community.
It's a game that, at its peak, is brilliant, but only under very specific, often difficult to achieve conditions for the average player. As Eurogamer so eloquently put it, a problem shared is a problem solved. Nightreign thrives when players engage together, overcoming shared challenges, shouldering the burden. But this whole discussion, this huge score discrepancy, raises a really important question for you, the listener, and for FromSoftware's future. Is this bold experiment, despite its clear flaws and alienating a chunk of its solo fanbase, a necessary, courageous step for them to evolve and innovate within their IPs?
Or does it risk permanently alienating the very audience that made Elden Ring such a massive success in the first place?
Exactly. What does this weird one, this audacious departure, truly mean for the future of From Software and the gaming landscape, especially with another potentially multiplayer-focused title like Duskbloods reportedly on the horizon? It's definitely something to ponder as the industry explores new ways to play, and studios like From Software continue to surprise, delight, and occasionally utterly perplex us.